It's our second day in Mallorca and our first day out on the trail. I dreamt of hiking the GR221 all the way from beginning to end, a route known as the dry stone route due to the stones used for building the paths to connect the villages long ago. Its length is somewhere around 160 kilometers through the rugged and beautiful Tramuntana mountain range, reaching from the westernmost point in Mallorca to the northern tip of the Spanish island. But I still have a full-time online job, and knowing that I can only escape into nature for a few hours each morning somehow makes the time on the trail that much more precious. The air has a chill to it this morning. We're starting our first hike high up on the coast and the mist is swirling around the rocky landscape. The mountains look barren, almost like we're stepping into a scene from Lord of the Rings. I take a deep breath. The air is fresh. I can smell the strong tang of the wet pine trees. And the smell of the rain and the trees and the wet earth is just what I need right now. We hike through the mist, listening to baby goats calling out to one another. We find a single forest trail that takes us down to a beach that's surrounded by ragged cliffs. The waves are crashing into the rocks and the sun comes out for the first time this morning. It's like we found our own little private paradise and I don't really want to leave. But we keep hiking back up into the hills until we reach our rental car. It's time to return to work, but I'm already planning our hike for tomorrow. We can't hike all day every day, but we can traverse our way through the mountains a little more each morning. The following weeks have the same kind of routine. Pick out our hike for the next day, go to sleep, wake up early, and head out to the next trailhead. The hikes don't always work out as planned. We're not following the exact GR221 dry stone route, so we choose hikes that loosely follow the mountain range. Some are well-tracked and easy to follow, and others are completely wild where we can choose our own adventure. We head out early one morning and start hiking as the sun is rising. The clouds are low and the sun shining through the foggy cloud cover creates this orange glow. It's beautiful, but as we hike up a slope that looks like it belongs in a scene from Jurassic Park, we realize that the route we want to take is up on a narrow rocky ridge somewhere in the clouds. It forces us to take an alternate path that becomes our greatest adventure yet. The relatively easy 5-kilometer hike we had planned turns into 6 hours of bushwhacking through the wilderness. There's no trail, so we have to rely on our GPS coordinates and small paths that are used by mountain goats to traverse our way back to our starting point. We finish much later than planned and covered in scratches from the thorny bushes that we walked through, but we can't help but laugh at the unexpected turn our hike took. It definitely wasn't what we had anticipated, but it's stories like these that we can look back on long after we've left Mallorca. Our daily hikes take us from the coast where we watch mountain goats wind their way along rocky outcrops over the ocean to caves hidden in the forest with towering stalagmites. We hike alongside beautiful glacier blue lakes high in the mountains and take rest stops at refuges, many of which were old monasteries built hundreds of years ago. We pack in easy, quick, and tasty vegan snacks like smoothies, leftovers from the night before, or rice cakes and baguette to dip in creamy vegan herb dip or tomato pesto. The weekends in Mallorca feel like a treat. Instead of having short bursts of time on the trails, we get to spend all day in nature soaking up the desolate beauty of the Tramuntanas. One of these days is when we discover that an all-vegan hotel lies at the base of the mountains. A quick search online tells us that they offer 4-course gourmet vegan meals, and it sounds like just what we need after a long day of hiking. We drive through winding backcountry roads and arrive at this gorgeous stone villa just as the sun is setting. Before dinner, we get to meet their rescue pigs, Trudy and Tyson, It's my first time meeting a pig, and I'm surprised by the wiry bristle-like hair and their adorable grumpy little personalities. The meal is better than any food we've ever eaten, vegan or otherwise. We spent hours lingering over French onion soup and apple tartine as the dogs of Villa Vegana cuddle up by the fire. The atmosphere is so cozy and inviting, and the food impresses us so much that we return a few days later to feast on homemade vegan mozzarella, gnocchi, and tiramisu. Our only regret is that we can't return for another delicious meal because they're closing for the season. The one place I know we have to visit in Mallorca is a little town called Soya. We've heard stories of how beautiful and quaint the town is, so we set off on a trail that snakes along the edge of the coast. It's really steep and winding, and at times it feels as if one misstep would risk a sheer drop into the crystal blue water far below us. But we press on, and it's so worth it once we crest the ridge and are faced with a beautiful valley surrounded by rugged, rocky mountains. We check and double-check our trail map. It must be wrong because it points at us traversing up a near vertical rock face to continue on our hike. Now we know why there weren't any reviews of this route. We've come so far and we don't want to turn back, so we pick our way carefully up the cliff face, clinging to the rocks on a trail that is often less than 2 feet wide. I wish I could film this, but the sheer drop next to the trail keeps us completely focused on climbing. One step forward, inching over boulders, rock cans guiding our way, thinking we've reached the top after each false summit. A goat peeks out from behind a boulder higher up on the trail, watching us and probably thinking that it's much more suited to this terrain than we are. We finally reach the top, surprised to find that the sun is on its way to setting. The rest of the trail is laid back. We pass by olive trees and walk through stone walkways and meet a couple of friends along the way. The night gathers as we grab a couple of clementines from a nearby tree to snack on. The end of our time in Mallorca draws near, and we're trying to fit in as many hikes as we can before we have to leave the island. Our last days are spent exploring the northernmost part of Mallorca, and I think the northern views impress us the most. The mountains here have a rugged sharpness to them, as if someone took a hammer and struck away the facade, leaving the jagged inside exposed. It's so windy here, and as soon as we step into the shade, we put on our toques and warm jackets. We climb down the last trail, zigzagging our way through the terraced stone pathways, back to the car and our last drive home. I still wish I could have hiked the whole GR221, because there's nothing quite like spending all day and night on the trail. But even though we could only get into nature for a few hours each day, it was more than enough to make us fall in love with Mallorca.